Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here with me. Okay, today it's gonna be probably a little bit longer video as per usual. So if you have a coffee, if you have a tea, my plant-based milk just sort of they sometimes do that, don't they? They just kind of have different layers, like ew, it doesn't really look the best. It still tastes fine. Anyway, grab your drink. If you have a tea, if you have a coffee, grab a snack, because I'm gonna talk today about differences between degrees in UK and in Poland. Just bear in mind, I studied bachelor degree in Poland and master degree in UK, so obviously there are also differences between degrees, but I will talk on general about whole structure, about subjects, about everything that you do, about teaching methods, everything that you might be interested, hopefully. So yes, differences between degrees. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna start from the first general point about years of study. So I am aware that every university is different. I'm not gonna really talk about the foundation year because we all know that in UK you can have a sort of foundation year that prepares you for different courses, that is a sort of introduction to university. In Poland there's no such thing really, but overall years of studying. In UK, as far as I know, it's usually 4 years of bachelor degree. Sometimes it's 3, but it's mostly 4 years as far as I know. Including some of the courses have 1-year placement. Whether in Poland, bachelor degree lasts 3 years. Okay, so I actually checked in Central St. Martin's, for example, the bachelor degree lasts 3 years. So I'm guessing it depends on university, on the program structure. So let's say 3-4 years. In Poland, it's usually 3 years. Second of all, let's talk about costs of universities. So obviously, if you are Polish, you already know. If you're not, let me tell you, in Poland you don't pay for universities, so there's no such thing as tuition fee unless you're studying in a sort of part-time mode that you study on weekends and you learn, because in Poland the whole structure looks a little bit different. The full-time is full-time, Monday to Friday usually, depending on courses. The kind of part-time is when you study only on weekends, and it's usually every second week. In UK, tuition fees obviously vary between universities. It depends also on the city that you study in. But as I checked, previous mentioned CSM, the tuition fee for this year, so 2020/21, is £9,250 per year, meaning times 3. You can count it yourself. It's a lot of money, let's be honest. Obviously, the price of the course, the fee, does not include all the materials, all of the fabrics, everything that you need to pay additionally on top of that. It doesn't include your accommodation as well. And in Poland, you also have to pay for your accommodation yourself, your transport yourself as well. So now, as I mentioned before, as I studied master degree in fashion in London, I paid also around £8,500 as far as I remember, and I paid for 2 years course because eventually I was a part-time student, which I'm gonna talk a little bit more about in the future because I didn't actually explain it. For the whole structure of years, so in Poland we actually have only 2 terms per year, so it's usually autumn, winter and spring, summer. Both of them last around 5 months, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 months, something in between. So you usually start in October, you have exams around January, February, and then you have a little break for about 2 weeks. You start your next term in late February or early March, and you end up in June, I suppose, sometimes July, depending on your exams, depending on year. In the UK, in most of the universities, as far as I know, there are 3 terms. So you have spring, autumn and winter, and they are really short. For example, all of my terms were approximately 2.5 months, so that's how it looks like. And then after each of them you have literally 1 month, sometimes 3-4 weeks break. My master course started on the 17th of September and it ended up on the 1st of December. Then we had a break until second week of January, as I suppose. Yes, I think it was like 8th of January. Then the term lasted for a little bit longer because I think it was until the end of March, so it's like almost 3 months, 2.5, a little bit more than that. And the whole April was off. Then we started again in May, June, and we ended up in the end of July. So actually, when you have your holidays in Poland over summer, usually July, August, September, these are the holiday months in Poland. You have long holidays, long summer holidays. Here you only have 1 month holiday. So for me it was August and a little bit of September, and then we started another year again. So I don't even know exactly how to compare the structure and the modules and subjects, classes that you have, because they are so completely different. But let me just start from Poland and I'm gonna tell you like how it looked like. So as I also mentioned in my one of the videos I made about fashion courses and things you need to know about them, I said that you're not only gonna study fashion, you're gonna start everything about fine arts and many other things and fashion. Meaning that when you study on Academy of Fine Arts, which is usually the university you go to study fashion, you're gonna study fine arts with fashion design. It's not gonna be the opposite way. I had 17 different classes, 17 different subjects on my first year. I'm not gonna remember all of them exactly, but I can tell you it was painting, drawing, sculpture, composition, history of art, computer programs, obviously the fashion design. So you actually choose 2 faculties, 2 main subjects that you want to study there on your course. So you choose different you kind of choose different studios, as we can call it. And I'm gonna miss words here because there are no equivalents in English language. On the whole department of fashion and textiles, because this is how it was called where I studied, you have different studios. The translation would be workshops, but it's not workshop, it's more of a studios. So for example, in department of fashion, strictly fashion, you have the studio of fashion design on general, the other fashion design. You have different professors, you can kind of choose which one you want to belong. There is a studio of knitwear design, there's a studio of leather accessories and shoes design, and there is a studio of underwear and costume and swimming costume design as well. So basically these studios change sometimes, like if they open a new one, if they close another one, sometimes they change the names. I'm not sure if it looks exactly like that right now, because I heard that they were supposed to open a specific studio for menswear, because when I was studying it was all included in fashion design, it was not women's wear and menswear. On the first year you're actually choosing your 2 major faculties, as I said. So for example, for me it was the first one, the design, so it was fashion design, women's wear in my case, and the second one was knitwear. But actually after the first year I changed my knitwear because they opened a new studio and it was underwear design, and I switched to underwear design. So these were my 2 main faculties, let's call it this way. So apart from the design work that you do for them, you also have another classes from pattern cutting. You have workshops, and it means sewing. We also had lectures. So as I said before, history of art is one of the lectures. We also had something called contemporary art. I think we can kind of translate it this way. It was on Mondays at 6:30 until 8 p.m. So I think you can imagine how involved and engaged in these lectures we all were. Then we had also aesthetics. I think that's the name of the subject, and it was a lecture as well. But honestly, this one was super interesting in my personal opinion. We had a really great tutor, and he was really well aware that it was late on Tuesdays actually, and people don't usually listen that well at this time, so he was really understanding. So usually the whole structure of the week looked like on Mondays and Wednesdays, and sometimes Tuesdays in the morning you would have your design studio classes, your consultations, tutorials. Then later in the afternoon you would have more of the lecture type of classes, or you would have construction or something similar to this one. And Thursdays and Fridays were days for fine arts, mostly, not always, but on general. So on Thursdays and Fridays, from the morning almost until the afternoon, you would basically have painting, you would have drawing, you would have sculpture. On the second, third year, you would also have marketing, the kind of technical drawing in like programs. It's not really well named in Poland, but it's basically the subject where you learn Corel Draw, and in UK you don't use Corel Draw, you need to learn Adobe Illustrator anyway, but that's what you learn in Poland. I think from the second year we also had to choose one language, so in my case it was French. We also had physical education, so it was either yoga at 7 a.m. in the morning, or it was fitness, and I had it on 7 p.m. So that's the subjects you also need to choose. And on Fridays, the last subject I think we had on my last year was called, it was a kind of copyright type of class. Like, you would think about it as we should technically get to know there how to make a contract between you and your employer, like if someone wants to buy your design or buy your clothes, like what kind of deal you should make with them, what kind of contract you should sign. In a result, it was a really formal kind of on paper type of thing, when we would have literally the definitions of words, and that wouldn't be really helpful in terms of the practical side of this, but whatever. First, second years are really packed with all of the classes. You basically end one and you go for another, or sometimes you have them in the same time, so you go a little bit for the first one and a little bit for the second, or 1 week for the first one, the second one the other. On the third year I would say it is a bit better. I think we had maybe 11, 12 different classes, so it was more bearable, especially that there were some that you wouldn't really need to be even present. So in between second and third year you need to go for internship, and the minimum time required for this internship is 1 month. So usually you do it over summertime, and after that sometimes you would also get an offer to stay with this company. It usually means that you're just gonna have some designs from them, and you're gonna have to prepare the technical drawings in Corel for them. In the whole 3-year structure, as I said before, you have compulsory internship for at least 1 month, and usually the university can help you a little bit in terms of giving you examples of places that you can go to, but overall you need to find it yourself anyway. You usually have also something called plener, which could be translated as a open nature type of trip, en plein air from French. And it basically means that for 2 weeks time, you and all your colleagues or your friends or your group and some of the professors, mainly from painting and drawing studios, would go with you to the little town somewhere in the middle of nowhere, where you kind of have a lot of nature around you, whatever. You go there, you bring your own canvases, your paints, and you're going for painting. So you're basically spending 2 weeks having whole days to go out to paint from nature. In the evening you have tutorials, you have consultations about it. I mean, you don't get graded for it, but you actually need to you need to pass it basically. Okay, so just to summarize quickly the whole Polish degree. So you have 3 years, 1 trip, 1 internship for at least 1 month, I think 4 weeks exactly, multiple different classes, multiple different subjects. Also have so many different paperworks and things that you need to do. And for example, if you want to change one studio to the other, you need to prepare a special document that you need to download from the website. You need to go to a special place, which is a sort of student office. You need to politely wait in a queue because they are open literally 2 hours a day. Literally 2 hours a day, and you need to wait in a queue for next hour to get inside. Then you go inside and you find out that you missed 1 point or you missed 1 document, and you need to do it again the next day, and you do it again and again, something is wrong. So that's kind of the reality of Polish students. It is a really paper dense course. And in UK, so I'm gonna tell you how it looked like in my case for my master degree. The day we started the year, so as I study fashion, we went to the fashion studio. It was actually a sort of temporary studio only because they were doing the whole renovation of the building, so we had a pretty small one, but it was still like 3 times bigger than mine in Poland. So we would be the group of, I don't know, 30-40 people. Our tutor would come with his assistant, because there are 2 main tutors in studios. He would greet us, he would introduce himself, and he would basically go straight to the point of our course. Basically, you have different modules. You usually have 2, sometimes 3 modules per term, and this is all you need to do. And when I say modules, for example, my first module was archive project that we got, and the second one was collaboration project. So these 2 projects we are supposed to do, submit in December, and that's it. Apart from induction to workshops, meaning that when you start using workshops for like sewing and everything, you need an induction so they can tell you about the rules and, you know, health and safety, everything. You don't really have any other classes. We didn't have any classes. We would only have from time to time some sort of lectures, or it was in our case called speech, that we would have a guest coming over. They would give advices as well. So we would have these kind of lectures, but they were usually not compulsory, so it was your choice whether you want to come or not. And when we started our course, we would literally have Tuesdays and Thursdays for our tutorials, and we started as group tutorials. So we would have 4 different groups, A, B, C, D, morning and afternoon. Morning started at 10:30, afternoon 2 p.m. We would come together as a group, sit down. It was like 7-8 people in the group, and we would talk in front of each other about the research and about our work that we have done so far. So that was a bit challenging because you obviously need to speak out in front of everyone else, but it didn't overall last too long. I literally had maybe 3-4 tutorials like that, and then we quickly jumped into the individual tutorials. So the individual tutorials are usually, I would say it usually lasts about 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes maybe 20, but it's rare. When you just sit down with your tutor, he looks at your work, he tells you what he thinks, what you need to do, what you're missing there, and that's it. So I believe that full-time students would have these tutorials twice a week. We usually had 2 modules per term. So for example, 1 module Tuesday, 2nd module Thursday, and that's it. Me as a part-time student, I only had it once a week. I would come either Tuesday, later I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, depending on my tutors. I would sit down with my tutor, talk about what I'm doing, thank you, bye, that's it, see you next week. And that's literally it. That's it. You don't have anything else. You're just focusing on this one. You're not doing anything else. You don't have any kind of painting, any kind of sculpture, nothing else, just this one. So I think you can already tell how difficult it is for me to even compare these courses because they are so completely different. For me personally, it was super difficult to switch these modes because I was so used to this overwhelming amount of subjects and the amount of, I would say, control tutors had over my work. The guidance from tutors is not even a guidance anymore, it's more of a I'll tell you what to do type of thing. Here it's completely different. Here is like you do whatever you want to do. Of course, they're gonna tell you something is wrong, they're gonna judge you, they're gonna criticize you as well, but basically they will never tell you what to do. If you have any issues, if you don't know what to do, the answer would usually be, well, then go and figure it out. Well, you don't know how to sew a corset, well, then go to the museum of underwear and find a pattern, or I don't know, maybe go and find a library, a pattern, or go for workshops and try to sew one. Like, you know, you need to figure it out. Oh, you need to know something about laces. There's a laces factory in Nottingham. Well, then maybe you should take a train and go to Nottingham, then that's a part of your course. That's how it looks like. The research that you're doing is not a research that you're just googling things, Wikipedia, thank you, paste it, and that's it. No, the research should be the first-hand type of research, so direct research. So for example, if you want to find out something about Victorian dresses, you should go to Victoria and Albert's Museum and do it yourself. Request an access to archive, to the library, go and sit down and figure out yourself, because just googling things, especially from Pinterest, like, oh my god, just stay out of this website, is not valid at all. I also searched a little bit more about bachelor degrees here in UK. By modules, by structures, I could tell that I might be wrong about this one. If you studied fashion in UK, please let me know, because I might be wrong, but it looks like it is similar to masters. You probably have still a few more classes in like workshops or pattern cutting, but basically you work on yourself, you learn by yourself, you're coming to studio whenever you want, you're working on things yourself, you have tutorials. It all revolves around fashion degree, and it all revolves around fashion, around studio work, about making garments. Yeah, so I hadn't actually mentioned that before in terms of further terms in my studio. We obviously had to sew garments as well, and there's another big difference. In Poland, when you sew your collection, your garments for submissions, whatever you have, actually, let's say you had a project, you're supposed to have 2 different outfits from this module. You're sewing them from the final fabrics, you're doing your whole, you're organizing your whole photo shoot, you need to have it printed, the portfolio, usually also the big prints of your garments in like photo shoots. So you also have to deal with all of this before the exams, which is a huge amount of work to organize it and find people and find models and a lot of money, everything. In UK, unlike Poland, you actually don't sew garments from the final fabrics. You're making 12. You're mainly sewing from calico until your final collection. You're mostly sewing from calico because it's cheaper, so you don't have anything like photo shoots during your master degree apart from your final collection. So this is the time that you usually sew the final looks in final fabrics, and you later on prepare the photo shoot as well. Right, so in the end I would actually also mention the final outcomes and the final work that you have after finishing your degree. So during BA, on the final year, the final term, you usually obviously sew your own collection. So the requirements in my university were the minimum amount of 6 looks, the photo shoots obviously. We can call it a dissertation, the thing that you also need to do, but it's more of a project report, I would call it right now. So basically you have the amount of, I think it's like around 10 pages of the research and theoretical part that you need to write. Then you're going through the fabric samples, then you're going through the technical drawings that you obviously need to have for each look, and then in the end you have final looks, the final photo shoot that you had, and that's what you're finishing your project report with. And there's another part, because apart from doing your fashion collection in the end of BA, you also need to choose one of the subjects from all of the fine arts part, and you need to do a project work from that subject as well. So for example, you can do a series of paintings, you can do some sort of drawings. I did photography because it was the easiest one and the cheapest one and the less time consuming one, because as you can probably imagine, already sewing and making your collection plus different subjects is a lot to take, and if you still need to do the other part from fine art, it's gonna be a lot. So yes, it is really hard work overall. So you have 6 looks, the book, let's say, with your report, your looks as well obviously, and to finish off your whole year, let's say, so you're submitting all this work, you're submitting the book on a specific deadline, then you have a specific tutor selected for you that's gonna give you a grade for what you did. But also we have something called obrony, which I still don't really know how to translate it, but as I checked it in a translator, it should be called Bachelor's defense. In my opinion, it doesn't really say that much. So basically it's a presentation. So you stand in front of your tutors, so you're kind of creating this presentation, you obviously have it behind you, you're standing in front of them, and you have, I think it's around 10 minutes where you need to talk a little bit more, like you need to summarize your whole collection, your whole bachelor's degree in front of them, tell them about the whole idea, the process, the outcome, everything. That's what you need to include. You need to talk about this fine art part as well, and then they ask you questions, and after they ask you questions, they will, like, everyone has these defenses on the same day, the presentations, so in the end of the day you find out what kind of grade you got, and this grade is your final grade from your bachelor degree. So this presentation is actually cherry on the top, like this is the last part that you need to do, and that's it, you're done, finish your bachelor, thank you, bye. With master degree, for example, in my case, we did not have such thing as presentation overall, but what you do have is, so you saw the collection, and the collection needs to include 4 looks, but you first need to create these 4 looks and sew them from calico in first place, and then you're making them from the final fabric. So you actually need to sew 8 looks, but 4 of them is just the repetition of the first version. So you're checking the construction, the pattern cutting in first place, and then you're creating the final look in the end. Apart from your collection, your physical work, you have to obviously make your portfolio, which, for example, in Poland there's no such thing. You don't need to finish your degree with a portfolio, which portfolio is the main thing that you need to apply for jobs, but there's no such thing in Poland. So obviously the portfolio is like, I think it's like half of your final grade, so portfolio is really important. You're working on your portfolio basically since the beginning, because you're gonna have to include all of the projects that you've made on your whole degree, which is a bit annoying because you're still gonna have to redo and look at your first, in my case, archive project that by the end of your course you hate them already, but you still need to redo it, and You need to include everything, but your final collection needs to be there, your whole research, your whole development, mannequin draping, fabric samples, everything. That's your portfolio. The second thing that is your final outcome is a major project report. It's gonna be the summary of your whole degree basically, right? So we have portfolio, major project report, and the third part that you need to do is called media pack. And usually when you actually finish your collection, when you submit all the work for media pack, you have a bit more time. You have like extra month or two to do it, because media pack should be your final version of portfolio that you're gonna apply for jobs with. So it should be a shorter version than your final project portfolio, because obviously you're not gonna include your archive project or whatever you did in the beginning of your master's, because you don't care. You should, by this time, you should also have a photo shoot. And the final thing that you need to submit to finish your master's is tech packs. So yeah, as I said, portfolio, media pack, tech packs, and major project report, and that's it. You don't have any presentations, anything else. You're just submitting it, and that's it. Right, so just to give you a little bit of my final thoughts about all of these subjects. As I told you before, in Poland, the degrees, even on universities, are way more general. You still study a lot of different things. I know, like on a master level, you probably have a bit less different classes and you can focus a bit more on this fashion aspect. Yet still, you have quite a lot of different things going on as well, like philosophy and different other subjects on your degree as well. In UK, it's really focused on this one subject, on fashion design, and it's a really independent type of course. So you basically work on your own, you're just having consultations with your teacher, you're only showing them your work once, twice a week on the master degree, for example, and you're working on your own. You're not gonna have many answers from them. We had a person, a pattern cutter, coming to us during the time when we were about to sew our twirls. She would help us, but you still need to do it yourself. You have workshops, you have the technicians working on workshops, and you can ask them for some help. But basically, when you're a master's student, it is expected from you that you need to know yourself how to do many things, which for me it was a big struggle, for example, because I am terrible in sewing. So for me it was a really stressful time when I was about to sew something, because I felt stupid in front of other people who were really great at sewing, and I felt like, you know, I don't belong here because I don't know how to sew a coat myself from the scratch. So yeah, you spend a lot of time in library in the beginning doing your research. Later on you spend a lot of time in studio and workshops, doing some mannequin draping samples. So there's a lot of individual work going on. Your tutors will also not tell you much about what you need to do. As I said, in Poland you have really specific answers for everything, really specific schedule. You need to just sort of adjust to it, and that's it. So I guess, you know, you can tell yourself, what do you think would work better for you? Are you more of an independent working person, or are you more of a I prefer to be told what to do type of person, because you don't feel secure enough about yourself? Like, for example, I don't know, in UK for sure it is mainly up to you how much work you want to commit for this university. It is up to you how much do you want to study, how much time do you want to study. Are you the party person? Are you not? Do you have to work as well, for example, and you're not gonna have that much time for your university? So yeah, I hope this video helped anyone. If you're wondering, if you're just curious how it looks like, if you're thinking about going for a master's abroad, or if you're thinking how degrees look like in different places. If you studied fashion yourself, please let me know in the comments, what are your experiences with courses? How did it look like? What are your thoughts and opinions? I would love to see that. I really hope I actually mentioned everything that was important. There are probably other things as well that I couldn't think of. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. And thank you so much for being here with me, and I hope I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye.